Adlina binti Kamarudin. My matrix number is AS09593.
Hi, my name is Zul Amal Fahmi bin Misbahuddin. My matrix number is AS08903. And today, we're going to present about sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Hi guys, so today we have 4 learning objectives that we have to cover by the end of the topic. So let's move on to the first learning objective, which is to identify the key components in the flowering plant life cycle. So let's get to it. This information can actually be found on page 494 of your MADA textbook. So let's see. Now, considering figure 27.1 as our reference point, so we have to know that the diploid sporophyte is actually the dominant portion of the life cycle, and that is the portion that actually bears flowers. So now the flower, let's look at the flower. Now the flower is actually a reproductive structure of angiosperms, and through meiosis, it actually produces 2 types of spores, which is the haploid microspore and the haploid megaspore. The microspore would undergo mitosis and become pollen grain, which is either wind-blown or carried by an animal to the vicinity of female gametophyte. So now this pollen grain is actually the male gametophyte. So let's look at the haploid megaspore. So the megaspore actually undergoes mitosis and becomes the female gametophyte. Now the female gametophyte is an embryo sac within the ovule that is within an ovary. So at maturity, a pollen gland which contains non-flagellated sperm will travel through pollen tube to the embryo sac. Now, so once the sperm fertilizes an egg, the zygote becomes an embryo still within the ovule. So the ovule which actually develop into a seed which contains the embryo and start fruit surrounded by a seed coat. And the ovary actually becomes the fruit which aids in dispersing the seeds. Now when a seed germinates, a new sporophyte emerges through mitosis and growth becomes a mature organism. So it actually repeats the cycle all over again to reproduce. Now we've finished with our first objective. Now our second objective has something to do with this. So this information can be found on page 495 of your MADA textbook. Okay, so flowers are unique to angiosperms, and the function of flowers is to attract pollinators and produce fruits with enclosed seeds. So let's look at the first part, which is the sepals. And these sepals are the leaf-like structure, and the function of it is to actually protect the buds as the flower develops. Now collectively, sepals are called calyx. And let's move on to the petals, which is actually a major factor of attractiveness in flowers. So petals have different sizes, shapes and colors to attract specific pollinators. Now, a lot of petals are called corolla. Moving on to the stamen, which is the male portion of the sexual reproduction system in flowering plants. So this is the filament, which is the slender stalk here, and this is the anther, which is the sac-like thing on top of the slender stalk. So here is where the pollen grains actually develop. So let's move on to the carpel, which is this vase-like structure. And this is actually the female portion of the sexual reproductive system. So this is the style, which is this slender stalk here. This is the stigma, which is this enlarged sticky knob on top of this. And this is the ovary, which is the enlarged base, which encloses the ovules. Okay, so let's look at this ovules. Okay, so the ovules play a significant role in the production of megaspores, and therefore female gametophytes as described shortly.
So now we will proceed to our third objective in this chapter. It's about this picture. Okay, it's about a comparison between male gametophyte and female gametophyte. Okay, let's proceed.
Okay, for male gametophyte produce male gametes. It derives from the microspore of pollen grain. Originates inside the microsporangium. It has 4 microspores and all of it is functioning. For male gametophyte, it has 2 phases of growth and leaf microsporangium and disintegrates after fertilization. While for female gametophyte produce female gametes. It derives from the megaspores, originate inside the megasporangium, and same as male gametophyte. Female gametophyte also has 4 haploid megaspore, but only one is functioning, and it has single phase of growth. it remains inside the megasporangium and produces new structures after fertilization.
Okay guys, so you already know about the difference between male and female gametophyte. So we will proceed to our last objective about double fertilization. Okay.
These double fertilization events occur between male gametophyte and female gametophyte. Before this event can occur, the ovule must to undergo some changes. Okay, it starts from the ovary. The ovary contains one or more ovules. An ovule is covered by parenchyma cells, except for one small opening, the microphyte. One parenchyma cell enlarges to become a megaspore mother cell that undergoes meiosis to produce 4 haploid megaspores. Okay, the 3 of these megaspores degenerate, leaving the only surviving megaspore. One megaspore nucleus divides mitotically into 8 nuclei to become the female gametophyte. When cell walls form around the nuclei later, there are 7 cells. One of it will be binucleate. Okay, the 7 cells, which are 1 egg cell, 2 synergic cells, 1 central cell with 2 polar nuclei and 3 antipodal cells, will eventually become part of the double fertilization event. The double fertilization event occurs when the male gametes travel from the anther to the embryo cells. But before that, male gametophyte need to undergo some development to be mature enough. Okay, microspores are produced in the anther of flower. An anther has 4 pollen cells. Each contains many microsporophytes. A microspore mother cell undergoes meiosis to produce 4 haploid microspores. The haploid nucleus then divide mitotically, forming 2 cells enclosed in a finely sculptured wall. This is a pollen grain, which is at first an immature male gametophyte containing a tube cell and a generative cell. The larger tube cell will eventually form the pollen tube. Okay, eventually, each generative cell will divide mitotically to form 2 sperm. Once both events has occurred, the pollen grain is mature enough to be fertilized. Okay, the fertilization starts when a pollen grain lands on a stigma. It germinates, forming a pollen tube. A germinated pollen grain containing a tube cells and 2 sperm is the mature male gametophyte. As a pollen tube grows, it passes between the cells of the stigma to reach the microphyte of an ovule. This double fertilization occurs when the pollen tube reaches the microphyte. One of the sperm unites with the egg to form a 2N zygote, and the second sperm unites with the 2 polar nuclei to form a 3N endosperm nucleus. This fertilization is unique to Angiosperms.
That's all from us.
Thank you for watching.